I'm not going to be like Glenn McGrath and just throw the old 5-0 whitewash at you. It's a series that will be dominated by the Australian cricket team. I just feel like they've got more firepower with the ball, a little bit more stability with their batting, although it's not the most stable batting order that we've seen from Australian point of view, but I feel like particularly at the top four, I feel like is probably a little bit more stable than what potentially England's is. So look, I feel like it's going to be 3-1, and I give them the one, the English cricket team, on the back of the fact that Ben Stokes is now back into the lineup. Before he was announced, I had it at 3-0, and I was predicting a draw or two, so just the one draw in this series. I feel like, you know, Sydney's weather quite often throws a couple of curveballs at us, and the MCG is always a chance for a slow draw. So look, I'm going to go with 3-1. I do feel like the Australians are going to dominate this one. Of all 5 tests, I think the test England are most likely to win is probably the Gabba, and that's basically on the back of the way the weather's been for the last few weeks. The wicket's barely seen any sun. They do have bowlers that are enormously skilled and they move the ball beautifully. You know, that's their strength. So I feel like it's playing into their hands a little bit at the moment. We'd love to see some warm weather and sunshine so that we get the traditional Gabba that has a little bit in it the morning of day 1, but then flattens out and maybe has a few cracks in it late on day 4 into day 5. We'd love to see that, but I feel like it might have a little bit more in it than we're used to. And the word on the ground in Queensland is it's got a nice emerald green look about it, and that's not what we'd like to see as Australians, but certainly we've got some skill with the ball, with movement in the air and off the wicket as well, but it probably does play into England's strength a little bit. If I was selecting the team, I'd have Usman Khawaja opening with David Warner, and I've always been someone who believes you pick your best team for each upcoming game and your young players will force their way in at some point. But certainly I feel like if we're trying to win this next test match as a starting point, then I've got Usman Khawaja opening the batting, and that is strengthened by the fact that the first test is played at the Gabba. There's going to be a fair bit in it. Usman's batted on day 1 at the Gabba in a lot of Shield cricket, which does traditionally have a lot in it. The Shield wicket up there at the Gabba, so I feel like it's going to be Marcus, but I would have picked Usman Khawaja. I feel like if England are to get into this series and be competitive, it's off the back of a really good start to the series. And these conditions at the Gabba are going to offer them every opportunity to do that, particularly Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad. And we have seen Stuart Broad get on top of David Warner recently, so you know, I think that's going to be a big contest. That first session for the Australians with the bat in hand, it's going to really play a big part in seeing which way the series goes. In Australian conditions, we've got a number of players that are dominant, and certainly no doubt David Warner is one of those players, and he's at the top of the order. He's going to have a huge bearing on this series. If he's able to get over the demons of a Stuart Broad's attack on him around the wicket in English conditions, if he can get on top of that early, then England will really feel like they're under pressure and where do they go to next. Whereas in England conditions, they were able to come around the wicket and get into the Australian top order really early. And I also think Steve Smith is in for a monster. He's probably not been at his absolute best in the last couple of series for Australia, but certainly the last time he came up against England, he was dominant and he was a fantastic figure of leadership with the bat. So they're the two I think that are going to be really pivotal to Australia, having a big series here on home soil and retaining the Ashes. We'll see the best of Joe Root this Ashes series on Australian soil. He hasn't been at his best in his last few tours, that's for sure, but I think we're going to see a big series from Joe Root, and I feel like it's going to be a 400+ run series. He's a guy that likes to score. He is a guy that's in serious form. Certainly over the last few years, he's been in the top 2 or 3 batsmen in the world in Test cricket. Certainly Joe Root is the form player in this lineup. He is the major threat in this English lineup to the Australian chances.